Brenden and I back in our cozy little booth here in the what is this? The community the Community America
Credit
Cardinals Club.
Union. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, this is if you're blessed like Rocky and have green seats, I believe you get to come in here first.
I've never been in here.
Before.
Yeah.
That's
Till yesterday.
yeah. So that's where we are moments after the introductory press conference for the new president of baseball operations, Chaim Bill DeWitt Jr., Bill DeWitt III, here at Busch Stadium, as a different little feel from yesterday as we said goodbye to John Mozeliak all by himself, and now today you saw all of the top Cardinal front office execs there for that. So, Brenden, initial thoughts on what we saw?
Yeah, I don't know if we've learned a whole heck of a lot yet, but I thought Chaim kind of laid out a lot of what we expected to hear. He talked about prioritizing a long-term vision over short-term gains and mentioned that, there could be sacrifices in the short term, which I think we were all aware of coming in. Still, the extent to which that's going to be the case, I think it remains a question until some of those events actually unfold. I believe with some of the writers, we'll get a chance to ask some additional questions here soon, as Chaim is right now talking with TV, radio personalities for those shows. But, what I would be curious is we kind of expect, based on recent reporting, guys like Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, to be floated out there via trade. Wilson Contreras, I think the same will be true, but he's maybe expressed more of a desire to stick it out and be around for the long haul. But like, how far does it go beyond that? And what will there be in terms of a belief that the Cardinals can still compete in the short term? But I think it was interesting, and maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, a little bit of a distinction between how the Cardinals approached this past year and how Chaim is saying we're not going to concede anything. I think was language that, John Mozeliak in a year ago at this time, they talked about, the desire that they would still try to win, but, there were going to be challenges to that. I think the way that it was framed today was really appropriate in terms of, look, there's still talent around here. We're not going to concede anything, but we have to make sure, Chaim reiterated it multiple times, that the things that we're doing are with the long-term vision in mind.
I think there's two things that make what you said true going into next year and kind of should give Cardinal fans optimism that you're going to see a competitive product on the field. Two things that were brought up today. First off, I guess one thing yesterday, one thing today. Bill DeWitt having to, in front of the media, having to address the attendance this year and talk about just how upsetting it was to see what the attendance was year after year after year of having 3 million fans. And I like the way, I think it was Martin that asked the question, kind of said, they were voicing their displeasure with it. And that, I think, for the DeWitts is, it sucks. It sucks to see nobody in the stands when you know how electric the place is most years.
Yeah.
And something that Mo touched on yesterday, looking at it, I mean, they were technically in the wild card race with 4 days left in the baseball season. You were tied with the Cincinnati Reds 10 days, less than 10 days into the regular season remaining.
Yeah.
And the Cincinnati Reds are playing a baseball game today in the wild card round.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at that and you look at the approach that Chaim Bloom's going to take, is that, okay, the product we put on the field this past year was not up to the standards of what Cardinal baseball should be, but look how close we were to playing in October. And that is what you keep hearing. Like, yes, long-term success is going to be the more important standard for this club. It's to make sure they are in a place to be long-term successful, long-term, have those runs of consecutive playoff years over and over again. But also, we feel like we could put the guys on the field that are going to win next year and put us in a spot to be in that wild card round.
Or at least they're not conceding it, right? They're not going to come out and say, yeah, it's going to, like, the word rebuild was said for the first time by someone asking a question. He didn't come out and say, hey, we're rebuilding, because of the connotation that carries. But I think based on what's been reported and based on everybody's understanding of where the organization is right now, we can certainly expect rebuilding types of activities to take place. Still, one question I'm hoping to be able to ask at least is the notion of, and it was said, we're not, starting from scratch. I can't recall if that was Bloom or DeWitt Jr. that said it. I think it was the chairman that said it. But this idea that, you do have young talented players that were in the timeline to potentially build around those guys. If in any other era of Cardinal baseball, especially under this ownership group, that would be guys like, Brendan Donovan, maybe even a Mason Wynn, where you look at and say, okay, we're coming up on arbitration. We're in arbitration for some of these guys. We're going to extend them. We're going to put them in as pillars of the next iteration. Or does the rebuilding activity go so far as to say, hey, a couple of years left of arbitration for a guy, but we don't think we're winning this year, next year, and so those guys are on the chopping block as well if we're really looking down the road.
And for those watching, for those listening, that it's really important to, Bill DeWitt Jr. did actually say the word rebuild. He was responding to a question, but he did say it for everybody that says that they are doing everything in their power to avoid using that word.
No,
he did say that word.
That was telegraphed by Mo yesterday, where he said, hey, we never rebuilt under my tenure. Yes, tomorrow might say something different, which is like kind of a little bit of a cheap way to go out on it, because it's like, well, if not for the standard declining over the past few years of his tenure, the rebuild wouldn't be necessitated. But I don't think it just falls on John Mozeliak. I do think ownership as well has to be aware of maybe the differences that are going to be required of them in order to move this thing forward. And like a lot of that has already happened in terms of the infrastructure that was put in place. And Chaim Bloom talked about the ability to kind of wait in the wings the last couple of years, build relationships, and put himself in a better position, I think, than he was in when he started out in Boston. He's going to be able to hit the ground running, but hopefully that does lead to decisive action in the early days of his tenure. Like if that's just words, and then we end up seeing, well, there's kind of that similar feel to the offseason where they maybe could have gone a little bit further. They maybe could have been a little bit more decisive. I don't know how Cardinals fans are going to respond to that, but right now I think everybody's pretty open-minded to going, all right, next couple of months, let's see what Chaim Bloom is able to do in the early going.
You weren't able to see the comments as we were running the press conference live, as it was going through there. And I think, people were upset at one of the other key comments that was made. Somebody asked about payroll going into next year. And Bill DeWitt Jr. flat out said, like, we have not talked about payroll.
He said they haven't discussed it.
They haven't discussed it, which the people in the chat, the people watching,
people are not enjoying that comment.
But
they don't believe him.
Think about it from this way.
You
have Nolan Arenado, who is due how much money next year?
I don't know the number. If it's 25 million, whatever it is.
If he gets traded, you imagine there's going to be some financial ramifications with that.
Maybe some relief, if anything.
Same with a guy like Sonny Gray,
especially
who owed like $35 million, I think.
And he had a good enough season to where you can maybe not have to eat that whole deal. With Nolan, I don't know. But with Sonny, you're going to get some relief.
To sit there and think that they have said, hey, you have this much to spend,
not
knowing what those trades are going to look like and what that's going to be in the end, there's no way that you could figure that out at this very moment.
Well, Bill thinks differently. Bill says they haven't talked about it because it'll be so small that it doesn't matter. It's going to be we're in the show me state. They're going to have to prove that it's not that, because a lot of Cardinals fans are going to think that it's that it's basically sell off the pieces and don't reinvest. The word resources came up and said Chaim will have the resources that he needs, but they don't put a timeline on that specifically, which is where it could get a little bit, you could have room for interpretation on that.
And again, the word resources with that doesn't mean just money. They're not just talking about just the money for that, because so much has been made the last 2-3 years about how they have needed to rebuild developmental all the way down to rookie ball, all the way up. And Chaim has talked about, I think it was clear today, there's been so much over the last year and a half of what does he do? What's his role? What's his role? What's his role? And I think in talking, him talking today kind of brought up, it sounded like he had a big part in some of the hirings that they made at the developmental level.
Oh, I mean, he was responsible for all of that.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, as we're sitting here wondering what's he doing, and people, making making comments behind the scenes of saying, this and that of what he's actually here to do. And I thought it was very clear. Okay, that's, he is building it from the ground up, while Mo was here in St. Louis. And that goes back to yesterday, Mo saying that he didn't go to any of the minor leagues this past year. So,
and we knew a lot of that last year. Like, Chaim was authorized by ownership to hire some of his people, Rob Serfolio, Pierpont. There were a number of guys that he brought in, Larry Day, like that. That was the beginning of the organizational hierarchy that is largely going to be in place. I think there will be some tweaks to that as now Chaim is officially in charge. And as for the field staff, you can put the comment there up asking.
Well, I'm just gonna say this one. I mean, because this isn't true.
Well,
like this, but it's not true either.
They were
because-
asked about the CBA
yeah,
and
and
the
what's
impact.
I mean, and what's they don't know, right? I mean, it's one of
They don't
30
know.
teams. Like, you know, it's right now. Like Chaim doesn't know what's going to happen with that at the moment. I don't think anybody really.
There's
knows.
not a lot, and like, yes, I think the question to it was Derek's, and would want to see acknowledgement of like, yep, that is something that could potentially, but they're not going to admit that. I mean, they're not going to come out and say, yeah, we have no idea what's coming, and you know, we think that the chance to pay players is going to be more favorable for us after, so we're going to wait. But I think it's a relevant question. I also understand what else. One thing I'll say, and I like John Mozeliak, but I feel like there were times where when he would answer certain questions, whether it was the tone that he would use, whether it was the wrong word choices is not even a word, the usage of phrasing that he would use would sometimes end up, the perception was that he would put his foot in his mouth. Whether it was reality or not, perception is reality. And so I think at a certain point, his style is what went a little bit stale for Cardinals fans. I think Chaim Bloom is not going to do that. I don't know if he will make those same errors in speech where like he's not going to give you much. He's very polished in terms of the way that he approaches, and there will be questions about that CBA question. DeWitt III batted it down pretty well as well, although he wanted to clearly talk about some of the stuff they're doing downtown and things that they're trying to bring up to speed on the fan engagement and the safety aspects that are very relevant. It just wasn't as relevant to Derek's question, but that I think that might be why they're saying, well, he kind of avoided, and then Derek reiterated the question about the CBA. I do think the CBA is a real thing, but to your point on, have they really not discussed payroll? That seems impossible. My argument would be it's hard to get into specifics until you know, are we going to successfully trade Arenado, or is it a case where, because he's not going to be on the team. I'll tell you now, Arenado will not be on this team next year. They will DFA him if they have to, is my belief. That's not a report. I'm just telling you, I don't think there's room for him here. It would stun me if he's still here. And he's going to be more open to the destination that, you know, to potentially work out a trade. And I think ownership's going to have to, you talk about resources, they're going to have to be open to eating a significant chunk of the money, if not nearly all of it. Sonny Gray, that is actually relief that could come financially. Let's say that Sonny Gray is traded to the Giants because he would pitch well there, good climate for him. Don't have to worry about the St. Louis summers. He's owed 35.
Somebody's already pointed out, I think it was Stefan pointed out last week, one of his most successful years came in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area with Oakland. And so when you think about it, let's say that the Cardinals do have to eat some money because Sonny didn't have a great year, right? He gave up a lot of home runs, but he was still a solid pitcher, had 200 strikeouts. There's a lot to like about it if you are the Giants, and you don't have to pay the full $35 million. But what if the Cardinals have to eat $15 million, but they get off the hook for 20? Okay, that drastically changes things. But the question is relevant to ask: what do you do with that $20 million in savings? Do you pocket it, or do you say we can buy 2 starters with that money, and we don't need Palante and Kyle Leahy to be great to have a chance to compete? Or is it a case where they say, we're going to have to, because that's not in terms of like trading Donovan or not is a decision on, can we get 2 or 3 good players for 2028 versus can we build around Donovan and spend ownership's resources? This conversation is just financial. And so does it really put the Cardinals in a lesser position to do the things that Chaim Bloom wants to do if they just say we're going to kind of pocket that money because we don't really think the revenue is going to be as high without ticket sales, decrease to the TV contract value? That's more, it's not related to the on the field, the baseball strategy of it. But if you have that resource financially available because you traded Sonny Gray to at least round out your rotation with a couple of small potatoes buys, I am literally talking about bargain bin stuff. And it's the type of stuff they didn't do last year outside of Phil Maton. I think this roster, the core of it, is decent enough. As you said, they were right in it till the end this year, even though they were on the outskirts and we knew it wasn't happening. 2 starters for that, whatever you save in the Sonny money, could actually turn this Cardinal team from 78 to 84. And people say, I'm tired of being stuck in the middle. That's great. I'm not arguing that that move is going to set the Cardinals back 2 to 3 years in their rebuild because they're going for it now. That's small potato stuff that I think rounds out the edges of the roster. And I hope that they're willing to do that. We aren't going to know until those veterans are or aren't traded exactly what Chaim Bloom has to work with. So I think that's why when he says we haven't talked payroll, that's more what I'm thinking of. Not that they haven't had any discussions about, are we going to shed Sonny's money? Or are we going to try to move Nolan? I think it's like they don't know brass tacks of like what that number is going to be. And I think that's true.
This is Card Central Instant Reaction here as part of Card Central 365. Joe and Brenden with you, and it's brought to you, as always, by DraftKings. The crown is yours. December 1st, get ready, Missouri, because the DraftKings Sportsbook is coming. And if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code STL Sports, you can grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Also brought to you by Graybar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And Brenden, I know for the people that are waiting to kind of, see what more is coming of this. I know he's done his hits on all of the on 2, 4, 5. He went around there, did something on with the cat afterwards as well. I believe you guys are all the writers, the baseball writers. You guys are going to get to sit down with.
That's my hope. Yeah.
At 12:30, and they just brought a bunch of bottles of water over there, and they said they were going to do it in this room. So I don't think you're going to miss it.
That was my worry. I'm looking over there going, what's going on? Yeah.
You were terrified that they were going to do it in that room in there, and you were going to miss it.
Yeah.
Brenden, I think you're going to be the first one seated at the table over there when
we'll take that
when they do it, and we'll read all about it on stlsportscentral.com later on today, and hear about it as the week goes on as well, and hear about it from a lot of different voices too, because Claib's obviously is here. We'll get his thoughts on it. Randy, if you were watching the press conference, Randy had the first question, asked 2 questions during that, and of course Randy will be on there. We'll be on STL Sports Central later this afternoon around 3:00. Bernie was watching the press conference that we aired live here on STL Sports Central, and I know he's doing his show in regards to that as well. And I have a feeling, just a little spoiler on what Bernie is going to be talking about during his show. I believe Bernie was a little frustrated with nobody in the media asking about the future of Oli to Chaim Bloom, asking him what that future looks like for that. Oli was in the room. Oli was here. He was here. Yeah. So I don't know if we're that would have been that.
There just was
a weird question. Look, it's gonna get asked. Maybe you can ask it over there.
It's something that I think could be relevant in that space. Fans obviously are going, heck, I get a chance to watch this press conference. I hope somebody asks it. But you have to understand, sometimes you're going to get a different answer when there's not a video camera and it's being live streamed versus, you want like a background kind of question. Sometimes the questions that get asked off the camera, you may end up getting a more substantial answer, whereas people are saying, people are kind of avoiding answering different questions. That comment I had up there, you took it off.
Oh, sorry. I was about to put another one up.
Yeah, we'll try to roll through some of these comments in the time we have. Tyler's right there. Okay. I think he's pushing back on the idea that you would have to eat half the salary. It would be a dumb business decision.
$35 million is a lot of money.
He wasn't a $35 million pitcher this year, and in St. Louis. And I do think the environment affects him. I do think he'll pitch lesser in the heat of the summer. It's just like, if a guy does something enough times in his career, you go, okay, look at the numbers that he has in July, and then look at, in other months. It does seem to be something that impacts him. But I would say that I only would be in favor of it because, again, I think a lot of what this rebuild talk is like, oh, ownership's going to get to lower payroll. And if that ends up happening, what is
you are just waiting for him to come
every time a door opens. What is the benefit to Chaim Bloom's operation if they just have a much lower payroll this year? I don't think that benefits. It benefits ownership to not have to spend as much money, and maybe because of revenues, that is something that they need to do. I don't have their books, but I try to kind of look at it from both sides. My thought for Tyler would be, I would be in favor of trading Sonny because I think he pitched well enough this past year that you wouldn't have to eat all of the money, and you might be able to allocate the money more effectively because you have a hole with your number 5 starter. Right now, you're looking at Liberatore, McGreevy. Help me out here. That's kind of it, right?
Yeah, Palante,
but I'm talking about guys you have confidence in.
If you have the dry erase board in your office right now, I mean, Palante's name is
he's
down
on
there
it. Kyle Leahy, Kyle Leahy's name is on it.
You're making sure it's in dry erase marker that you can erase easily. Yeah,
and they have to decide because he's going to make $3 million too. And I like Andre Palante, but the performance simply has to be better than it was this year to justify even a $3 million salary if that's what he ends up earning through the ARB process. So, but that only gets you to 4, and I'm counting Kyle Leahy. So if I'm looking at Sonny in that group, okay, maybe with Leahy, Palante, I'm at 5. And yes, I believe Quinn Matthews starts a game for the Cardinals in 2026. Liam Doyle could appear for the Cardinals in 2026, though. If it's very rebuildy, we have to retrain our brain because they're not going to start his clock. Like this past iteration of Cardinal baseball, I don't think was as concerned about starting the clock as people thought they were. But until I see how Chaim Bloom handles it, I'm not going to make the same declaration. They could very much say with Liam Doyle, 26 isn't going to be a winning year. And so unless we're like surprisingly in the divisional race in July, August, even if he looks ready, that might be a case where we say, we just drafted him last year. You can easily write that off and say, let's wait another year. I just think they're going to need pitching. And so I almost would rather reallocate the Sonny resources because to your point, he was kind of performing like a number 3 this year and he's being paid like a number 1.
Yep.
And I think people see the 200 strikeouts and believe we can get more out of him, but we don't want to pay 35, but we'll pay 20 or we'll pay 25, like whatever it is. The Cardinals, I think, should be willing to eat a little bit of money because they could also get a prospect back for him. With Arenado, I don't think you're getting anything back that's noteworthy, but with Sonny, I think there's enough. Everybody needs pitching. So I think that is a resource, Sonny Gray, who's going to be willing to listen to offers and go somewhere else. And I think could bring you more value in a trade than what he could bring to your lineup next year.
I'm going to throw this up there just to say, Aaron, you've commented a couple times about needing moves done today and wanting to see stuff done today.
Take a breath.
Baseball's postseason begins today.
Take a breath, big guy.
I believe the day after the World Series last year, I think the Angels, where they traded for Jorge Soler, like the very day after, that is the earliest that something's going to happen. Okay, like there might be if like he was saying, like there might be things saying, hey, yeah, we're definitely trading Nolan Arenado.
There could
they don't
be
come
moves.
out in the report.
There could be,
but
guys could be released. I think that's a possibility before the playoffs are over. But again,
it's something that Major League Baseball would just.
You've got November, you've got December, you've got January. Like I do believe it'll be an active offseason. I believe this will be the most compelling offseason of Cardinal baseball in a long, long time. Because you've got a new guy in charge, and we don't know what to expect. We don't exactly know the way that he is going to operate relative to the last guy. But you're going to hate this. Be patient when it comes to not everything happening on September 30th. If we get to January and it looks very similar, I'm not going to ask you to still be patient. Like the things have got to happen. And if we're going to credit the Cardinals for the slow play of let Chaim Bloom get comfortable, let him learn his bearings, find his footing in the organization so that he can hit the ground running. It is okay to expect him to hit the ground running. There should be moves in November. It should be very active in terms of guys that are removed from the 40, clutter that's cleared off, guys that are added, trades that are made. I think should absolutely be a very active November. It's September 30th. I'm going to, for a little bit longer, understand. And like you guys are smart enough to know this. I know there's frustration about the Cardinals. I get frustrated with commenters a lot of times. Aaron especially. Aaron knows that. You guys are smart enough to know, like, okay, this is going to give it a minute. Let Chaim Bloom get into the role, and we will be evaluating every week of November. I think that's fair.
Yep.
Like by the time you get to winter meetings in early December, we'll be looking at like, are they doing things? Is because last offseason was ridiculously slow, and then it materialized in nothing.
Right.
By the time they signed Mayton, we were like, holy crap, they got somebody.
Right.
That's not going to be what happens here. I'm confident.
Yeah, you got to think he's going to want to put his fingerprints on the team. Like it's going to be itching to do something with that. I will throw this up there for our final thoughts today, Brenden. Mason Windu asks, what new things did we learn today?
I don't think we learned anything new. I think it was reinforced that this is going to be a long-term vision. This is, going to be maybe a little bit painful in the short term. He said, there are going to be some short-term sacrifices, but I appreciated that he said we're not conceding anything. We're going to continue to look at opportunities to get a little bit better. And Chaim even said, when you take that approach everywhere he's been, when you're willing to have the long-range view be the most important thing, but you're not conceding anything in the short term, oftentimes things come up that benefit the organization in ways that maybe you didn't expect to happen.
Special guest as we do this. So you're getting up. We're going to bring him right in the middle here because Claibs, we were wrapping up our show today. There he is. It's Mike Claiborne.
Have you talked to Chaim?
We haven't yet. 12:30. Chaim's going to be over there.
We
talking to the writers.
We haven't had any sort of one-on-ones, but I'm hoping to be in part of the writers.
Well, why don't we get him on here?
Scrum.
You want to go get him then?
He seemed very busy, but if you wanted,
he's here all day.
I know he's here all day. Yeah, we got all day. I will say that so the question was, Brenden, you could jump in here too as we move the camera. So what did we learn new today?
I think we learned that we're going in a new direction. And I think the plus here is this has been ongoing for like almost 2 years with him seeing this organization. So it's not like a guy jumping in for the first time saying, oh, I got to do this, this, and that. No, he's already done this, this, and that. Now he'll have his fingerprints on things moving forward. But I think the plus here is, while some think, oh, this is going to take 3 or 4 years. No, because they've already addressed the minor league situation, and that's the most important thing. They've got their hands around that. They're pouring a ton of money into development. I think they've hired like 30 people, 35 people. Technology they're spending a small fortune on, not only in Jupiter, but in all the ballparks in Springfield and Memphis. And where's the other one in
Peoria. Yeah.
So they're doing those things now. And I think we'll see the fruits of that investment sooner than you think. But I thought what Chaim said today, it was a different voice, which is all what we've been hoping for to have. And the fact that he's seeing this organization and knows what's at stake gives him, I think, a plus, gives him a head start on a lot of guys who take over who are like, oh, gosh, I don't even know where the men's room is around here. But he knows all those things, and I'm looking forward to watching it.
Do you like that he says we're not conceding anything when it comes to the next couple of years?
Yeah, and, I think, because, we've already done that. The other guy already told us that last year, that, we're going to take a step back. And he showed it because we didn't sign anybody, we didn't trade for anybody.
Right.
And you think about, we were one swing and miss pitcher and maybe another bat away from having a whole different conversation today because we'd be in postseason. Yeah. So with that said, I think in his case, knowing what's at stake, why not move forward? Because you're close. You're close. And I know some people say, well, why don't we spend money on a free? Well, wait a minute. Before we do that, let's get our own act together internally. And I've just mentioned that to somebody else. I said, it kind of reminds me of 2011 where you had all those pieces and somebody said, hey, let's go out and sign Lance Berkman. And that was the key. That's when you sign a free agent, when you're close. You don't sign a free agent a 4 or 5 year deal when you're 3 years away. And we made that mistake because you signed Sonny Gray and you signed Contreras out of need, not because you thought you could win.
Right.
Do you think the at least thought for next year changed in maybe the last like 2 weeks when you see you are, I mean, like we were talking about 4 or 5 days left in the season, you are still in contention. The Reds, who you were tied with going into like the last week of the season, they're playing today, you're not, and you do kind of take that step back and you look at it and you say, that could have been us. Like we could be out in LA playing the Dodgers right now if we would have done those things differently. Maybe we do need to refocus what we're doing next year.
Yeah, I think yes and no. I don't think we had enough players, winning players, and I think we've all looked at players and said, this guy can't help us. And I've seen enough of this guy and this and that. I think we've seen that enough. So, but I think we have a base to build off of. Now, having said that, I think everybody knows the roster is available to be traded.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one person you say, oh, we got to keep him. I don't think that's the play here. I think the play is we've seen these guys enough to say, man, if we add this guy or that guy with what we have, man, maybe we're going to be a more successful team. But I don't think this is the nucleus as we saw this year. And having said that, we were this close. We were that close.
Yeah, and the
Where
one
are you going?
he's
go start right. Oh, okay.
he's gonna go put an article up on STLSportsCentral.com. You could look for that coming up. Were you surprised to hear? Do you believe fully that they have not discussed any kind of payroll for next year?
That conversation will come up.
As we were talking about it, there's so
mean,
much that goes, like, you don't know how much you're going to be paying Nolan Arenado or Sonny Gray to not be here next year. So it's hard to sit there and say what the payroll's going to be.
No, I agree. And I think the other thing that comes into play, now they just had their organizational meetings yesterday. They had their exit interviews yesterday. So now they're all on the same page about yes, no, maybe, whatever. So I understand why Mr. DeWitt said we haven't had that conversation yet. And my question is, why would you want to have that conversation in September? That's a conversation you have once the season it starts to wind down postseason wise, because you now have a better idea of what your farm system looks like. You've had a chance to talk to all your people internally and to know whether this guy's closer. I mean, and I think the key there is not what you saw in Memphis, but what does Springfield look like? I mean, they won the Double-A, and they have about 4 or 5 guys on that team that may be close to being big league ready than you think. So you have to take that into account. So, yeah, I understand why payroll is not addressed, because we don't know what this is going to look like. And here's one other thing. It was briefly brought up today. You know, the CBA is an issue, okay? And if you recall the last time we had a work stoppage, did you notice that year before the free agents weren't being signed because nobody wanted to have that, you know, on the hook at that point? I don't know if we'll go there again, but that's been a strategy we've seen from owners before. And this time around, though, I think it's not players versus owners. I think it's owners versus owners. Players say, we don't want a salary cap. Okay. Would you take a floor?
Right.
And you and I have had this discussion where if you say to every team, you have to spend a minimum of whatever, 150 million. Now you have competition where players can go somewhere and, you know, now you can spend 151 million or you can spend 350 million. So the market works and the floor keeps rising depending on revenue. So the Pittsburghs, the Athletics of the world, the Tampas of the world, you're on the clock, bro. And if you can't adhere to this, then maybe you ought to sell the team. Or we're going to insist that you sell the team because we need to maintain a competitive balance within the sport.
Yeah. And you look at it too. I mean, the team that spent the most or second most of it,
they're watching on TV like us.
They're watching today. So speaking of first pitch for those games today starts in about 2 hours. Claibs, who do you like in the 4 wildcard series?
Man, it's a great question. I haven't put a lot of thought into. Give me, you know, I think whoever comes out of the Cubs series, because the Cubs are athletic. They can run. They do a lot of things. They're playing at Wrigley. Mike Schill kind of alluded to that yesterday. I like the Cubs.
I said yesterday to somebody, whoever wins Cubs-Padres, they beat the Brewers.
Yeah.
Winner of that series is in the NLCS.
Here's the only challenge, I think, and this is why winning the division is important. You have a chance to set up your pitching. And you may have a squeaky arm somewhere that maybe needs an extra day or two. So you go into this thing ready to go. I like Milwaukee's bullpen, but I also like the Cubs and what they can do. And I mentioned 2 teams, and San Diego might have the best bullpen in baseball.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, do they have anything left? Because, you know, they use that bullpen a lot out there.
They went and signed a lot. They went and got a lot of arms at the trade deadline too.
They don't have a lot of slug. And I think in a short series, you better have somebody who can have some pop. Now, at Wrigley Field, everything's on the table. So it's going to be fun on that side. On the other side, man, I don't want to play Cleveland. Cleveland is, you know, the things that are happening to the Guardians and how they got in and some other things just says maybe, you know, the eyes are looking down upon them to be able to go further. The 2 teams over there, Seattle and Cleveland, are 2 teams that I think you can see playing each other down the road.
Yeah, I mean, Yankees, Red Sox. Yeah, that's
coin flip.
Right.
You know, yeah, I say that only because I'm tired of looking at both of them.
It's still, I mean, it's another chapter in that, and it's meaningful. And again, I mean, you see, like, for everybody that thought that Cubs Cardinals this year didn't matter, Oli sure as hell made it matter on Saturday.
Yeah, he did. And you know what? I tip my cap to him.
Yeah.
You know,
so it's rivalry. Hey, rivalries are rivalries, no matter. Yeah,
I agree.
So
it should be fun.
Yeah. All right. Hey, he's Mike Claiborne. Brenden Schaeffer was on earlier, and he is writing. He's going to be talking to Chaim here in a bit, too. Lots of coverage. It'd be great if we do.
Well, he's going to talk
to him in the booth.
Say, hey, man,
all right. Well, yeah, wait, we got a lot going on here today. Randy still has his thoughts that he'll have coming up on STL Sports Central later today. Bernie has his thoughts that are coming up later today. So everything Chaim Bloom related is what you're going to be getting here today.
Let me respond to this.
Which one?
Jerry
right here?
Get the Oli love.
Okay.
So I guess my question is to people, if you have a manager who didn't get any help, they didn't help the roster whatsoever. He basically went down the stretch with a 4.5-man bullpen, multiple injuries to your starting lineup. I think if we didn't have him managing, they'd have lost 100 games.
Oof. Definitely. I mean, yeah, well over 90.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, and think about how many
and there
times
he adds on to this, say that he thinks that his teams always look flat when they play.
Okay, I don't know what flat means, because maybe because there wasn't enough talent.
Yeah,
maybe that's it. I think that might be an issue, because when you think about, look at the roster, look at the last game of the season. We basically had a AAA team playing. Now Arnaldo didn't play, Wilson didn't play, Mason didn't play,
Brenden
Donovan didn't play, and I just felt like, we had the chance to evaluate JC and Nolan Gorman and Walker and people of that nature. But when you go through a whole season, we only used 41 players this season. 41. And I think
I didn't realize it was
78.
Yeah. I mean,
most of those guys were pitchers.
Up until the last day of the season, they had 7 starting pitchers the whole year.
So, and that's a
the Kyle Leahy was the 8th when that was.
And you think about bullpen, John King was the only guy I think that went on the IL this year.
Yeah,
in the bullpen. So people are like, we got to fire the man. Hey, listen, the manager's the only reason why we were even close.
Right.
And you think about this. You go all the way through the season and you get eliminated the last series of this next to last series of the season. That's managing and coaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing else. And being able to get these guys in a position to be able to succeed. And a lot of guys were put in situations for the first time in their careers, like a Riley O'Brien and a Kyle Leahy and Matt Swanson, who were all in high leverage situations late in the year. So I'm an Oli guy with regard to seeing what he does on a daily basis. And, I know it's easy to fire the manager. That's the convenient thing to do. But for a guy who didn't get any help, I thought he did a remarkable job.
There you go. That's Mike Claiborne. Lots still to come today on STL Sports Central. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on so you know when we are going live here on STL Sports Central. And all of our content, as always, brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours.